Coming to you from deep inside the bowels of a great big empty. Get ready for another episode of The Home Defense Show with Skip Coryell.
Hello, American families. Welcome to this week's episode of The Home Defense Show. I'm your host, Skip Coryell. And if you love your family, care about them deeply, and want to learn how to protect them in every facet of your life, then you've come to the right place. Wow, we got a really good show for you today. We have got a Marine Corps combat vet, Jason Stanley. Jason from Idaho. He's going to be on the show. He's going to be telling you, well, what's it like to be in combat? Do you get scared? Are you 10 feet tall, bulletproof? You know, does your training help? All of that stuff. I always love it when I run into a combat vet who can tell me what it was really like for them, because it's similar in some ways for everyone, but sometimes it's a little bit different. Jason did a deployment over in Iraq as a Marine infantryman, and then he was also in the National Guard as well and did a deployment over in the sandbox as well. So we'll be speaking with Jason Stanley. That is a really interesting interview, and I think you'll walk away feeling good about that. All right, what's going on? I've had a big week, really big week. Just finished publishing a book for a man. I'll be having him on the show here in a couple of weeks. It's a little bit of a secret, but this is a military book about military combat. Eyewitness military combat from World War II, Korea, Vietnam, and over there in the Middle East. So it's going to be really a good show when we have him on. That'll probably be in about a month. But I finished that book this week. It's an awesome job, and I think you're going to love this book. All right, I've also been working on my own book, Concealed Carry for Christians. I got 3 more chapters written this week. I wrote a chapter on spiritual fitness. I wrote another one on physical fitness. I can't even remember the other chapter, but it's a good chapter. But boy, I've got another, 30-some pages written. At this rate, I'll be done in 30 days, and that is my goal. So I may read you some at the end of the show. If we still have time, I'll read you a chapter or part of a chapter on Concealed Carry for Christians. It's springtime. It's official. There's actually sunshine outside, and, you know, my face doesn't freeze off when I'm out there, so that is fantastic. I have yet to have a warm day on the range. You know, I teach over at Fenville and Hopkins and Hastings, Hamilton, and now at Center Shot Indoor Gun Range, where it's always a perfect 70 degrees, just in time for summer. Well, hey, when it's 95 in Fenville, it'll be 70 indoor every single time. So, excited about that. Advanced classes are starting up really soon. I've got my first advanced class coming up next month. Go to mwtac.com, Michael Whiskey Tango Alpha Charlie.com, and you can sign up for a level 1 Beyond Basic CPL class, level 2 Move, Shoot, and Live, or level 3 Advanced Handgun Tactics. Take them all in order, level 1, then level 2, then level 3. By the time you get out of there, you will be an awesome force to be reckoned with. I have got 3 brand new guns. 3 new guns to my collection. These are long guns. I've always considered my quote-unquote arsenal to be a little shy on the long gun side. I got lots of handguns, not a lot of long guns. But I had one of the listeners call me up, Bobby from Nashville, and he said, hey, I've got 3 long guns. 2 are brand new, never been fired. The other one's had very few rounds out of it. And he wants to buy some new guns, but he needs to make room in his gun safe. And, you know, if any of you listeners out there have that problem, and you need to make room in your gun safe, and you want to give me guns, just give me a call, 269-838-5586, or email me at skipcoryell@hotmail.com, and I will be right over to collect your guns. But hey, Bobby called me and said, hey, come over and get these guns. And I went over there, and sure enough, man, I got a .22 Magnum rifle. Beautiful, beautiful gun. And then with a nice scope on it as well. And then another kind of a esoteric gun. It's a carbine, composite stock, but instead of being magazine fed, it's cylinder fed. So it looks like this carbine / pistol, and it is just cool as can be. It has interchangeable cylinders, so it will accept .22 long rifle or .22 Magnum because it's got two different cylinders, and looks pretty easy to swap out there. And so, boy, the kids are excited about that one just because it's different and it looks cool. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll take that composite stock off there, and then I'll put adjustable stock on there so the 7-year-old girl can shoot it, or the 13-year-old boy / man type. That'll be a great gun for the kids, so I'm excited about that. And then he gave me a long gun that I've been wanting for a long time, but just couldn't justify the cost. It's a 17 caliber HMR, a long gun, and boy, that sucker is heavy. It is just heavy. I bought the rounds, and they kind of look like tiny little rockets because they come out to a pointed tip like that, look just like a rocket, travel over 2,000 feet per second. And I'm thinking, wow, I definitely got to aim for the head when I'm shooting groundhogs on that, or else I'll ruin the meat. So I'm excited about that. And, it's going to be up 50, maybe 60 degrees this week. So I'm thinking those furry little rodents will start popping their fuzzy little heads up, and I'm going to have to blow them clean off. I'm excited about that because we need meat for next Groundhog's Day. All right, what else do we got going on? Well, lots of classes coming up, a lot of church safety stuff that I'm doing. Got the book coming out in a month. Oh, every mother's son wishes he were me, and I don't blame them. If you envy me, I forgive you. It's okay, because I've got a really good life here, folks. A really good life. I've got a wife who loves me, kids at home that love me, kids, grandkids, 11 grandkids. Everybody loves me, except the ones who don't count. So, let's get into the news here. I ran across an article last week that just really tickled my funny bone and also my sympathy bone at the same time. I got this from military.com. The title is Doctors Fought to Subdue Double Amputee Gunman at VA, Documents Show. A gun-wielding double amputee believed to be an Army veteran fired at least 6 shots in a Florida VA emergency room Wednesday night and set off a violent struggle with 2 doctors who eventually pinned him to a wall with a chair as he crawled after them. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be laughing because this is pitiful. This is pitiful. The FBI said Thursday, I just get this image when I read that paragraph. I'm an author, so I tell stories, and everything that I read, I've got a picture in my mind, and I've got this video of this poor guy, legless. He's got no legs, right? They've pushed him out of the wheelchair, and he's crawling after the doctors, trying to do them serious bodily injury, with deadly force. And I just, I feel bad about laughing like this, but I can't help myself. It's just the way that I am. One of the doctors, who has yet to be identified, was wounded in the neck in a struggle for the gun with the suspect, but was treated and released following the melee at the West Palm Beach VA Medical Center in Riviera Beach, Florida, the FBI and hospital officials said. Another VA employee was wounded in the buttocks. I'm sorry. I am so sorry. I am a very bad person. I really am. But, I read that line, and it just reminds me of Tom Hanks in Forrest Gump. I was shot in the buttocks. I'm a sick puppy. I am so sorry. Wounded in the buttocks in the burst of gunfire by suspect Larry Ray Bond, 59, of Michigan. Oh, gosh. Who was screaming for cigarettes before opening fire. Give the poor man a cigarette. The FBI said in a criminal complaint filed in U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida. This is just, I'm sorry, it's just so comical. Bond, who is believed to have served briefly in the Army and lost his legs later in civilian life, entered the hospital at about 8:30 a.m. and was in the emergency room for a psychiatric exam. Well, no kidding. I'm guessing he didn't pass the exam. He should have studied harder. You know, you can't cram at the last minute on a psychiatric exam. It's kind of binary. You're either ready or you're not. When he pulled a handgun that may have been hidden in the scooter he used, the FBI and hospital officials said. Oh, you can't make this stuff up. You just can't. FBI Special Agent Blake Crotty. Blake Crotty? Oh, man. This can't be real. It's real. It's on military.com. I'm sorry. FBI Agent Blake Crotty said in an affidavit accompanying the criminal complaint that the two doctors, identified only by the initials BG and EA, you know, if I'd been butt shot, I don't think I'd want to give my name either. Yeah, I was accosted successfully, shot in the butt by a double amputee who was crawling down the hall, and he actually caught me. Oh, that's shameful. I would hide my head forever. Were at their desks in the emergency room when a technician shouted that there was someone with a gun. At least 3 shots were fired, and BG immediately put out notice that the hospital was in an active shooter situation. Oh, gosh. He then saw a white male, double amputee on a scooter approaching, Crotty said. The suspect was complaining about cigarettes, and BG told him that there were cigarettes behind him in an attempt at distraction, Crotty said. Oh, look, the smokes are right behind you. Look, there's a squirrel smoking a cigarette. At this point, BG rushed towards Bond in an attempt to disarm him, and the two began to struggle with one another when Bond fired approximately 3 more shots, wounding the doctor in the neck. Now, that's not funny. That is not funny at all. That's very serious. Crotty said in the complaint. The name Crotty, that's funny, but getting shot in the neck is not funny. BG managed to wrest the gun away from Bond, and it ended up in the hands of EA, who held it over her head and used a chair to fend off Bond as he crawled after her in an attempt to get it back. Just give the man a cigarette, you know? BG, fearing that Bond might get the gun again, shouted at EA to throw it to him, Crotty said. She did, and it fell to the floor. BG picked it up and handed it to a nurse as a patient came to EA's aid. The two of them used the chair to pin the alleged gunman, without any legs, to a wall until law enforcement arrived. I'm sorry, I got this picture. I just got this picture, and I'm going to have it for the rest of my life. Bond was to appear in U.S. District Court later, Thursday, on charges that he forcibly assaulted and inflicted bodily injury on a federal employee engaged in the performance of official duties, Crotty said in the affidavit. Outside the hospital Wednesday night, according to a Florida Sun-Sentinel report, FBI Special Agent Justin Fleck told reporters, quote, in between shots, a doctor saw an opportunity to jump on the subject and disarmed him, and while doing that, sustained a gunshot wound to his neck. So pretty heroic. He wrestled with a legless man, and he still got shot. I'm sorry. Maybe he should work on his open-handed skills. In a statement Thursday, Mary Kay Rutten, a medical center spokeswoman, said the wounded doctor has been released from the hospital and is doing well, except for his damaged ego. We thank him for his efforts to subdue the suspect. Oh, boy. You know, there's more here, but I just can't take it. All right. I just can't take it. That's at military.com. But that is quite a story, ladies and gentlemen. Gunfight at the Legless Corral. Oh, my gosh. I guess I'm going to have to add something, to my training, how to gunfight against a double amputee on a scooter. Wow. It was a drive-by shooting by a legless man on a scooter. I'm a terrible man. Hold on. I got to slap myself. Whoa. A little too hard there. That hurt. Bad skip. Bad skip. All right. Hey, all right. We're out of time for this segment, and I need some time to recuperate. So we got a 2-minute break coming up here. When we come back, we're going to have Jason Stanley, Marine combat vet. He's not a double amputee and not disabled in any way, but he's been in combat at least twice. He was also an embassy, Marine Corps embassy guard, and those guys, man, they are the cream of the crop. So that's going to be a really good 2 segments coming up. All right, take your 2-minute break. Go ahead and check out our sponsors, firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical and elitefirearms.us. And then while you're at it, check out centershotgunrange.com, one of the best indoor gun ranges in Michigan. When we come back again, we will have Jason Stanley, Marine combat vet. This is Skip Coryell on Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
My name is Siege Coryell. Welcome to the Home Defense Show with my dad, Skip Coryell. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back.
This is Skip Coryell from the Home Defense Show, and I want you to have the very best handgun that money can buy. And that's why we recommend you visit Larry Jackson at Elite Firearms and Training. As a concealed carry instructor, I see people every week out on the range with guns they can't shoot properly because they didn't know what to buy. That will never happen at Elite Firearms and Training. Larry Jackson will personally fit you with your very own personal defense pistol. So call Larry Jackson today at 616-299-8715 or visit elitefirearms.us. Would you like to take your tactical and marksmanship training to the next level? If the answer is yes, you need to check out Center Shot Indoor Gun Range just south of Grand Rapids, conveniently located off US 131. Center Shot is one of the most advanced firing ranges in Michigan. Center Shot firing lanes have nearly 100 customizable shooting programs to make you better no matter what your skill level. Our advanced lanes allow a more immersive training experience to enhance your senses. Controlled lighting and target movement mean that you get the best practice and most fun out of Center Shot Indoor Gun Range. Memberships are available for as low as $150. Center Shot also offers a 10% discount to U.S. military veterans. So, no matter what the weather, hot, cold, or in between, Center Shot Indoor Gun Range is always a perfect 70 degrees. This is where I train every week, and so should you. Find out more by going to centershotgunrange.com or call them at 616-371-7468. Stay safe, and I'll see you at Center Shot Indoor Gun Range.
This is Colonel Danny Gillum. I host Frontlines of Freedom, a weekly syndicated military talk radio show. One of my co-hosts is Skip Coryell, the host of this show. We cover things that impact military and veteran communities, and we do it from the veteran's perspective. The show is broadcast across the nation and is also available as a podcast on our website, frontlinesoffreedom.com. Please join Skip and me weekly on Frontlines of Freedom.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coryell. Today, we are speaking with a fellow Marine, one of my Semper Fi comrades, Jason Stanley. Welcome to the Home Defense Show.
Thank you, Skip. Happy to be here.
All right, awesome. Now, Jason, you are in Idaho, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Boise, Idaho area, the Treasure Valley area.
Why do they call it the Treasure Valley?
Idaho's the gem state, and I like to think of the Treasure Valley as the gem of the gem state. It's definitely the most highly populous area, but it's just a beautiful area. We get all 4 seasons here. We got a clear view of the mountains and the snow-capped, Hawaii Mountains, and it's beautiful here. So, I'd like to think that's why they call it the Treasure Valley.
Well, I know that it is beautiful because my wife was born and raised in Oregon, right next to you. Right on the coast, Newport, Oregon. So we drive through Idaho, pretty much every year that we can make it out there, and it is definitely a beautiful state. So I am glad you're there, keeping vigil. Jason, tell us a little bit about your background, because this is your first time on the Home Defense Show.
Sure. Okay. Well, I joined the Marines right after high school in '97. And my first duty station in the Marines was an anti-terrorism unit out of Virginia called FAST Company. That stands for the Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team Company. And to make a long story short, we primarily provided physical security and force protection really wherever was needed. We deployed around the world several times, and this was back in '97, '98, '99, before there was any wars going on. So I spent a couple of deployments to the Middle East then, primarily doing physical security and force protection out of Bahrain and Doha, Qatar, and those areas. And that's kind of where I started to develop my background and my interest, specifically in the areas of deadly force, authorizations for the justification, the use of deadly force. A lifelong student of Colonel Dave Grossman and his teachings. It's molded a lot of my background in this area. Just fascinated by the study of the psychology and physiology of that deadly combat. I was in the Fleet Marine Force for a while. I was deployed to Okinawa in 2000 and 2001. From there, I was an embassy guard for 3 years, and I'll tell you, that was probably the most fascinating time I spent in the Marine Corps. It's one of the best-kept secrets of the Marine Corps. It's an all-volunteer force. It's a very serious force. I had a top-secret, SCI clearance, and at times you're the only person in the embassy, and you have the key to every door and the combination to every safe, and it's a fascinating position to see the goings-on of the implementation of diplomacy around the world. It's just fascinating to see how we administer our foreign policy and our security posture overseas. It's something I find very interesting. That was in the 2003-4 timeframe, kind of when the ground war in Iraq first kicked off. So I was not deployed in support of the combat operations initially, but once I left my embassy time, I spent the next year or so deployed with the Marines in an infantry unit, and this was in the 2004 timeframe. So I was in Charlie Company, 1st Battalion, 4th Marines, and we were deployed to Najaf, Iraq, and we spent the greater portion of 9 months fighting Muqtada al-Sadr and the Mahdi militia in the Wadi al-Salim cemetery in Najaf, and boy, I got a lot to say about that, but in the interest of keeping this, the introduction short, that's basically my background in the military. I transferred out. I spent some time in the Army, in the Army National Guard, and I deployed with them again in 2010 and 11. It was after that I decided to use the majority of my school benefits that have been sitting around collecting dust. So I attended Liberty University, and I got a degree in criminal justice with an emphasis in criminal psychology. I had intended to major in criminal psychology, but I felt called to the field of law about that point, so I dropped some of the non-required psychology classes at that point in interest to shorten my education there. And as soon as I graduated in 2014, I attended law school here in Boise, Idaho. I went to Concordia Law School, and I spent the majority of my time focusing on criminal law, just because I found that to be probably the most interesting. Criminal law has the best stories. When you get into torts or constitutional law or, some of the civil stuff, it gets super dry. But criminal law has the best fact patterns in law school. So I served as a deputy prosecutor for the county prosecutor's office in an externship capacity between my second and third years. And that's kind of shifted, I guess, the focus I've taken towards my views on deadly force and stuff like that. So I'm not sure how much more you want to hear about that, but that's kind of an overview of who I am and how I got to where I am.
Well, and your plans for the future are what, Jason?
Well, I took the uniform bar exam a couple of weeks ago, so I'm waiting for my results. And like any attorney that's probably passed the bar, you get a portion of your mind is convincing you that you completely bombed the thing. But I know I went into it prepared, so I'm confident that I'll be all right. And my passion is definitely in this in this deadly force, the protection business. I mean, I'm a sheepdog by nature. I have been, since I decided to pick up a gun over 20 years ago, and I haven't put it down since. So. Mm-hmm. That has molded my view towards the law, I think, and I'd like to see myself finding a way to serve others in that capacity. I mean, I don't know specifically what that means yet, and I'm still trying to figure that out, but I know that's part of it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to be willing and obedient to do what I need to do to serve others in that capacity. I don't know.
Excellent. This is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show, and we're speaking with Jason Stanley, Marine and National Guard vet from Idaho. Jason, you're not in the military, active in the military right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. I was up until a few years ago, and let me tell you, I've got two small children, and I was a platoon sergeant in an infantry, mortar section, and it was just between law school and a couple of small kids in the military. It got to be too much, and something had to give. So, unfortunately, I got to 17 years of service, and then just decided that was as far as I was going to go at this point. So, transitioned out of the military so I could focus on my legal career, my legal education. But
well, that's a good idea. I think, my priorities have always been God, family, country, in that order. And boy, if you succeed in every aspect of life except your family, then you haven't really succeeded at all. So, the kids got to know their daddy. And so I think you made the right choice, Jason.
Yeah, I'd like to think so.
Oh, you have, definitely. Now, let's go back to combat. All right. I was in the Marines, but it was peacetime Marines, 1975 to 1981. So, the closest I got to combat was, training. And it's not the same. So, what can you tell us about what is it like to be under fire?
Oh, boy. It's both exhilarating and frightening in the same moment. That's the best way I can explain it. A lot of people have said you don't rise to a certain level. You have these delusions of grandeur of what it's going to be like when you find yourself in this type of situation, and then that you hear that first round come across in anger, and all of a sudden you have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if anybody tells you they do, there's a small percentage of people I'm sure that have trained to the level where that's acceptable. Anybody that tells you like, oh, the first time I was in a firefight, I know exactly what I was going to do. I mean, they're full of it. That doesn't. I mean, that's not how it goes. So you do your best to rely on your faith and your training and your background. I'm a huge advocate for training, and not just physical training, but mental training. And that's why my study of Colonel Grossman and his works I found to be invaluable.
Yeah.
In preparing me mentally for the experiences that the things that I experienced.
Yeah.
But it's still frightening too. And you do your best to try and overcome. And, nobody likes to think you're going to be the one sitting down, huddling, behind a gravestone in the cemetery in the Joff, just praying for the next day to actually get there. But, it happens.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that just makes sense to me. For me, when I'm teaching, I teach concealed carry classes. Everyone has this idea in their head that they're going to magically and automatically rise to a level above and beyond their training. They're going to step into a phone booth, put on their Superman tights, and pop out and, vanquish evil. And that's not usually what happens, from my experience. You usually sink to a level below your training, and so you want to get as high a level of training as you possibly can, so that you just stay alive. And I'm thinking probably one of the automatic things that people do when they're being shot at is to lower their center of gravity, get behind some kind of cover. Am I right or am I wrong on that one?
You're absolutely right. Your base instincts take over, and again, not to keep preaching Colonel Grossman stuff, but on Combat Talk specifically about, the different nervous systems and what takes over in those situations. And let me tell you, your base instincts of become as small as possible and find the biggest, safest thing you can to hide behind. Some of that stuff just never goes away.
Yeah.
I do want to touch on one thing that you said, though, and it's that level of training.
Yeah.
That's so important, because when we train, whether it's physically or mentally, the scenarios we place ourselves in are most often those perfect scenarios. I mean, when I go to the range to train, nobody's shooting back at me. I got a paper target, I got a silhouette target. You're not adding in those variables that can't be trained to, and those are the things that will just completely mess you up when you experience them for the first time on the battlefield. And that's why realistic, shoot, don't shoot, scenario-based training is so important.
Yeah, I totally agree. There was a study done in the state of Texas where they surveyed concealed carry holders, and what they found was that less than 1% of the concealed carry holders, the certified licensed people, ever went to get any training beyond what the state required to get their concealed handgun license. Boy, and that speaks volumes. And to me, that's kind of scary when you think about that, because, man, you need every bit of training you can get, because you're talking about your life here, your life, and maybe the lives of your wife and your kids, and the people that you love. But I think civilians, they think differently. They take a lot of things for granted simply because bad things haven't happened to them yet, and they don't think militarily, they don't think combat, because it's just not an everyday part of civilian life. But boy, in my mind, you can't get enough training, but training is just paramount. And so are you in the training aspect now?
I am off and on. I'm waiting until I get my bar results so I can actually administer the legal portion of Idaho's enhanced concealed carry training requirements if you want to be licensed. Mm-hmm. But I have taught several classes in conjunction with an NRA certified instructor where I've spoken on the topics of the legal standards and stuff like that. I just have to be careful. I can't sign off on it for that aspect of the training that's required for the enhanced class yet until I am a member of the bar. It has to either be a post-certified firearms instructor or a licensed attorney. So yes, I'm involved in the training aspect, and I've focused more up to this point on, helping to conduct the ranges and speaking on the mental aspects. You can teach anybody how to shoot, really. I think you can, but, teaching people when and how and why, that's totally different. I mean, so I'm just a huge proponent of that aspect of the training, because, I'll take what you were saying one step further. I mean, Idaho passed constitutional carry in 2016. So now there's no requirement for training. And if you want to be licensed, that's one thing, of course, and a large portion of our population does, but there's no requirement to be licensed to carry a concealed firearm. So there's people out there that have probably no training whatsoever that decided it's a good idea to get up to date and, grab a gun and conceal it and go walk around.
I know. I'm torn with that, and that's probably, let's pick up on that when we come back in the next segment.
Sure.
I am speaking with Jason Stanley. He is a Marine Corps veteran, a National Guard veteran, a combat veteran, and now he has taken the bar exam, and he will be practicing law here sometime very, very soon. When we come back, we're going to be talking about a little bit about constitutional carry, but then I want to get into church safety aspects of that. So we have a 2-minute break while we are away. Go ahead and check out our sponsors, firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical. And then check out centershotgunrange.com and also elitefirearms.us. When we come back, we'll be speaking again with Jason Stanley. This is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
This is Felix Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Always use guns safely and wisely. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey folks, I want to tell you about my book, Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book. More and more people across the country are seeing the dangers in society and are deciding to carry concealed to protect themselves and their families. My new book lays it out step by step. It'll teach you how to protect and defend the ones you love. Get the benefit of 17 years of teaching experience and a lifetime of training for this important role in society and in your family. You can get Civilian Combat real easy. Just go to Amazon.com, search on Skip Coryell Civilian Combat, and it'll pop right up there. Don't put it off any longer. Get Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry book by yours truly, Skip Coryell.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if life was like the movies and the good guys always won? In today's world, if you're forced to use your firearm to protect yourself, you will need protection. Firearms Legal Protection is here for you. FLP provides you with seasoned, experienced attorneys that handle your criminal and civil matters as a result of you protecting yourself. FirearmsLegal.com provides its members with uncapped attorney's fees, bail bond protection, and coverage in all 50 states. We are not a reimbursement plan. You can access uncapped attorney's fees for as low as $10 a month. Firearms Legal members are provided with educational services, training videos, and access to our vast national attorney network. While you're protecting yourself, let Firearms Legal protect you.
Listen up, folks. This is important. There are plenty of legal protection services out there, but none will protect you as well as Firearms Legal Protection. This is the one I use and the only one I recommend. Visit firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical and protect your family now. Would you like to take your tactical and marksmanship training to the next level? If the answer is yes, you need to check out Center Shot Indoor Gun Range just south of Grand Rapids, conveniently located off US 131. Center Shot is one of the most advanced firing ranges in Michigan. Center Shot firing lanes have nearly 100 customizable shooting programs to make you better no matter what your skill level. Our advanced lanes allow a more immersive training experience to enhance your senses. Controlled lighting and target movement mean that you get the best practice and most fun out of Center Shot Indoor Gun Range. Memberships are available for as low as $150. Center Shot also offers a 10% discount to U.S. military veterans. So, no matter what the weather, hot, cold, or in between, Center Shot Indoor Gun Range is always a perfect 70 degrees. This is where I train every week, and so should you. Find out more by going to CenterShotGunRange.com or call them at 616-371-7468. Stay safe, and I'll see you at Center Shot Indoor Gun Range. Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coryell. We are speaking with Jason Stanley today. We've been talking about combat, what it's like. We've been talking about training. And Jason, when we left, you mentioned constitutional carry. And I got to tell you, I'm torn with that because I'm a firearms trainer, but I'm also a Second Amendment activist, big time activist. And so I realized that, yeah, the right to keep and bear arms, that is a God-given right, and it shouldn't be taken away. I don't even think you should have to license it. But the problem that I have is I see probably at least half of my students, they walk off the range, and I know that 3 hours of range time did not prepare them to get in a gunfight. But that's exactly, they walk away thinking that, okay, I'm Wyatt Earp now, I'm ready to go. And, as someone who's been in combat, you can tell me that that's not right.
Yeah, I certainly agree with that. And it's tough because you can't mandate anything without starting to infringe on some of those liberties. So it's a balance of interest that I think is always very difficult to establish what that balance is. And again, that's why I'm just a huge proponent of training and advocacy in that area. Information is power, and the more people understand about the responsibility that they have when they choose to carry a gun, not only that, but the liability that they open themselves up to, both criminally and civilly, when they choose to carry a gun. Boy, you talk to anybody that's been in a deadly force encounter, they will tell you that they'd wish that they'd never had to be in that situation, and it's going to affect them in some aspect for the rest of their life. Having as much knowledge and training as is possible ahead of time,
Yeah.
so that you make those, those close calls. That's the tough part. The clear distinction between whether to shoot or whether not to shoot, those are the easy calls to make. If somebody's shooting at you, you can shoot back. I mean, there's no question about that. It's those close shades, that's a matter of degree of whether you interject yourself into a situation or not, that takes judgment, it takes training, it takes practice, and unfortunately, I think the state mandated minimums on training, just like you were saying, don't adequately prepare people for those decisions that they're going to have to make and the effects that could last a lifetime.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that I get in my class. Typically the sheriff will come into my classes, and he'll talk about legal use of deadly force and the different firearms laws, and he'll talk for 2.5 hours and answer, as many questions as he can. But still, at that, what people seem to want is, he'll get done, be 2.5 hours, he'll go away, and I'm still there, and the hand will come up and they'll say, just tell me when I can shoot and when I can't shoot. And it's not always that simple. I mean, there's a lot of black and white scenarios, but there's a lot of gray areas too, and it depends on your jurisdiction and stuff like that.
Yeah, I certainly agree, and I think going and seeking out that information for yourself is one of those big things. It's easy for me to say, I've made my, professional adult life is, just reading and studying what's out there on this subject. And, I don't expect that everybody would take it to that far, but this information is readily available online. You can go online and you can look at your state's code and look at the actual legal standard that you'll be held to if you ever have to use, deadly force in self-defense or in defending somebody else. And there's a few key provisions there that, if people key in on, and I can use the state of Idaho as an example if you'd like me to go into that. But it's one thing to read the words that are on the page and say, I can use, a reasonable means to defend myself when I reasonably believe that I'm in imminent danger. I mean, that's just words if you don't understand what that actually translates to.
Yeah. Well, Jason, just for grins and giggles, I'm here in Michigan. You're in Idaho. Let's compare use of deadly force in Idaho as in Michigan. So go ahead and tell me, what are the deadly force laws in the state of Idaho?
Idaho is a very Second Amendment friendly state. I saw an industry comparison a few years ago that racked up every state in its friendliness towards firearms industry, and I think Idaho was like number 2. I mean, that's taking into account gun ownership, manufacturer, industry, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. So all that to say, our legislature is very friendly and very receptive to these. Our code, when it talks about self-defense and defense of others, basically the standard is very liberal. Which is good for a gun owner and somebody that carries a gun in self-defense. It basically says that you will not be in any legal jeopardy whatsoever for protecting yourself or your family as long as you use a reasonable means to do so when coming to the aid of yourself or someone else. And you must be reasonably believe that you're in imminent danger when you use that force. I mean, that's really the extent of the legal standard initially. And this is with the understanding that, I'm not providing legal advice here on what people even in this state or somewhere else are, that's the standard disclaimer I have to say since I'm not licensed attorney yet. I'm just, telling you my understanding of the code. But one of the most helpful provisions, I think, is that last year our legislative section, significantly expanded our stand your ground provisions, mm-hmm. and I found that to be very helpful and very fascinating. I'd be happy to talk about that some if you want to too, or if in the interest of time you want to, keep it short. But they very significantly expanded the protections that are afforded under our stand your ground laws.
Yeah. Well, I've one question. Here in Michigan, it sounds like it's very similar as far as, when you're availed the use of deadly force. In Michigan, it has to be an imminent threat of death or serious bodily injury or forcible sexual penetration. I just want, does Idaho have that last one as well or not?
It does, yeah. And I didn't go through the whole section, but yeah, you're absolutely correct. It actually says several different things. There's several enumerated felonies that are listed here, including aggravated assault, robbery, rape, murder, or other heinous crimes. So,
good.
For the most part, any felony, but the normal everyday citizen may not understand the clear distinction between what is and what is not a felony. So that, just like you said, that death or serious bodily injury of yourself or someone else is basically the legal standard.
This is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. We're speaking with Jason Stanley. Jason, talk about liability for a second. How is it there in Idaho? If you shoot someone, can you be sued civilly by, the relatives or friends of the attacker?
Yes, you can, but thankfully our crime rate is very low here, and you can never judge those things just based on on rates and standards and stuff like that. But when it does happen, it is rare, and again, not giving legal advice in this realm. It's if you're justified criminally to use deadly force, it's just rare that you would be found civilly liable. So that's focusing on that criminal standard and the Idaho code, which gives you the authorization to be able to use that. That's generally enough to keep you protected. Yeah.
Here in Michigan, I think it wasn't as reasonable. And boy, it was quite a few years back. We were getting people, homeowners that were being sued. One case that comes to mind, a man and a woman in their 80s were the homeowners. A young man broke in and was, beating the old man senseless, and the lady hit the bad guy over the head with a jar of pennies, and he was injured. And he sued them, and he successfully sued them. And our legislature looked at that and said, that's just not right. And so part of our stand your ground provision says that if the homeowner or whoever, the defender, is not charged criminally by the prosecutor, then they can't be sued civilly. So that's kind of a nice thing to have in our stand your ground law. Tell us about the Idaho stand your ground law, Jason.
It's similar. I don't know that it outlines the same provision as far as not being able to go after you civilly in a situation where you haven't been charged criminally. What I do know is that the changes that the legislature made in 2018, it expanded it so much. It used to say you could only use stand your ground, as a defense or the standard with regard to habitation, but they expanded that to include place of business, employment, occupied vehicle. So those same protections there have just been extended to just about any scenario. They added no duty to retreat. They defined each of those additions that they put in there, and they added certain presumptions, which I found to be very helpful from a criminal liability standard. Basically, saying that when a person utilizes deadly force in defense of a habitation or place of business or occupied vehicle, there's a presumption that they acted reasonably, so long as the person who they used force against did so under a threat of violence, or it was unlawful, or it was they made an attempted use of force. So really, it made a very broad application for stand your ground laws in the state of Idaho, significantly expanding our protections, which I'm thankful for.
Oh yeah, definitely. It really sounds like you got some pretty good laws there in Idaho. I knew they were fairly pro-gun. I just didn't know how pro-gun that they were. Definitely beautiful. Well, I will be driving through there this summer, so if it works out, we'll have to stop at the IHOP or Denny's restaurant or whatever, and just sit down and get to know each other face to face. So you are also you're trying to get in touch with Sheepdog Seminars. I met you through Jimmy Meeks, the founder of Sheepdog Seminars. So
yeah, absolutely. They had. I'm sorry to interrupt. I got a bad habit of doing that.
Go ahead, Marine.
No, they had one here in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, just within the last couple of weeks, and unfortunately, my schedule, I wasn't able to attend. But having been a student of Colonel Grossman and these guys for years, I wanted to reach out to them, and as I begin to enter the legal profession, especially with my background and knowledge on this aspect of deadly force, just to see if there was a way that I could be of service to them and their mission. And, I would love to get into an opportunity where I can provide some of my knowledge and experience in the realm of, those authorizations and justifications for the use of deadly force, especially as it applies to protection in the church. Because as somebody who takes my faith, it sounds like, as seriously as you do, we have a responsibility to protect those, around us, and that includes, in places of worship. And unfortunately, we see all too often people that don't agree with, political or religious views using that as an opportunity to turn their aggression towards an institution instead of the idea itself. So,
yeah. I think I saw on your resume that you're a member of your local church safety team. Is that correct?
I am, and the changes to our stand your ground laws in the state have significantly affected our, the way that we approach our security posture at church. Mm-hmm. And without going into too much specifics, since I'm not necessarily authorized to speak on behalf of our church, what I can say is the protections afforded to us by our state through these changes to our stand your ground laws have applied all the way down to the way that we approach our security posture within the church. And it's nice to know that we don't have to take on an individual liability now, and decide for ourselves every time we put it on, the gun on, whether we decide, whether we're willing to accept. We know that our state and, our legislature is behind us and advocating for our ability to defend ourselves, those that we care about.
Awesome. All right. Jason, I got one last question for you. I always ask this question of my guests. What's your favorite carry gun?
My favorite, so it depends on the day. As the weather gets nicer and stuff, I really like winter because I can wear a jacket and I can carry pretty much whatever I want. But I've been on a 10 millimeter kick lately, so I'm currently carrying a G20 10 millimeter with a few things to it, and that's just because I can conceal it well this time of year. But as the weather transitions to something nicer and I don't start, I'm not wearing a jacket every day, I'm going to have to reevaluate what I'm carrying. Yeah.
Well, you must have bigger hands than I do. I'm only like 5'10", 180. So I can't handle the recoil on a 10 millimeter as far as, subsequent shots on target. So I carry a 9 millimeter. But boy, my hat's off to anyone who can handle the 10 millimeter because it's a nice gun, and boy, it's a hard-hitting caliber, without a doubt.
It is, and if I could only have one gun, it would probably be, it'd be a Glock 19, just because it's so versatile. If I could only have one, but since luckily I can't, I'm not in that situation, and so I get a pick. But again, just like anything, I'll add this caveat: it does take training, it does take practice. I can't go out there and just, one-handed all day and Wyatt Earp it from the hip. It's not going to happen. Yeah. But with enough practice and experience, I try my best to keep it on target.
All right, Jason, thank you very much for being on the Home Defense Show, and thank you for your service to our country.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for your time, Skip.
All right. Okay, folks, this is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. We got a 2-minute break. When we come back, we'll be in segment 4. I'll give you the wrap-up, and I'll tell you about what I really think about a lot of different stuff. While we're away, check out our sponsors, firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical, centershotgunrange.com, and elitefirearms.us. This is Skip Coryell on the Home Defense Show. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Welcome to my dad's Home Defense Radio show. You're gonna love it.
Hey folks, I want to tell you about my book, Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book. More and more people across the country are seeing the dangers in society and are deciding to carry concealed to protect themselves and their families. My new book lays it out step by step. It'll teach you how to protect and defend the ones you love. Get the benefit of 17 years of teaching experience and a lifetime of training for this important role in society and in your family. You can get Civilian Combat real easy. Just go to Amazon.com, search on Skip Coryell Civilian Combat, and it'll pop right up there. Don't put it off any longer. Get Civilian Combat, the Concealed Carry Book by yours truly, Skip Coryell.
This is Colonel Danny Gillum. I host Frontlines of Freedom, a weekly syndicated military talk radio show. One of my co-hosts is Skip Coryell, the host of this show. We cover things that impact military and veteran communities, and we do it from the veteran's perspective. The show is broadcast across the nation and is also available as a podcast on our website, frontlinesoffreedom.com. Please join Skip and me weekly on Frontlines of Freedom.
This is Skip Coryell from the Home Defense Show, and I want you to have the very best handgun that money can buy. And that's why we recommend you visit Larry Jackson at Elite Firearms and Training. As a concealed carry instructor, I see people every week out on the range with guns they can't shoot properly because they didn't know what to buy. That will never happen at Elite Firearms and Training. Larry Jackson will personally fit you with your very own personal defense pistol. So call Larry Jackson today at 616-299-8715 or visit elitefirearms.us.
Skip, it's time for the Armed America Report. Take us there, dude.
All of us here at Frontlines of Freedom want our listeners to get trained and get armed in that order. We fully support the right to keep and bear arms for all law-abiding families, and we encourage you to find out about the laws governing use of deadly force in your state and follow them to the letter. And of course, don't forget to follow the rules of safety and common sense whenever you're carrying a firearm to protect the ones you love. What's the story this week, Colonel?
Well, acting on the trick in Trick or Treat, a criminal in New Haven, Connecticut took the Halloween saying to a tragic extreme. Walking down the street, a local resident was approached by a stranger who said, "Happy Halloween," before stabbing the victim. The pedestrian's cousin was waiting in a nearby car and stepped out of the vehicle to intervene and was stabbed as well. The cousin drew his firearm and shot the assailant in the chest, killing him.
Thanks, Colonel. Knife attacks are on the rise here in America and around the world, so let's talk about the best way to survive a knife attack. First, let's go over the advantages of a knife over a firearm. 1, it is quiet. Shoot someone with a gun and people hear it and call police, but a knife is just as deadly, but also silent. 2, a knife never runs out of ammo, so you never have to reload. You just keep stabbing until you've decided to stop or until someone else stops you. And 3, knives are easily obtained. You can walk into any dollar store and pick up a deadly weapon for just a few bucks, and they are legal to possess, and the purchaser doesn't need to pass a background check. Okay, now, what are the disadvantages of a knife over a gun? Well, there really is only one, but it is significant. A knife is a proximity-based weapon, meaning that the attacker has to be able to grab you before they can stab you. This means that if you can outrun the attacker, then by all means do so. When you are attacked with a knife, don't try to disarm unless you are highly trained in martial arts, specifically in disarmament tactics. Actors make it look easy on TV, but that's not real life. Put an obstacle between you and the knife. In this case, a car would have been perfect. Make the attacker chase you around the vehicle until help arrives. Of course, if you have your gun, then now would be the time to draw and shoot. In this scenario, both the victim and the rescuing cousin were stabbed, one in the bicep and the other in the elbow. You can survive a cut to the extremities, but a stab to the chest is more likely to be fatal. The 24-year-old cousin, who was armed, fought through his injury and was able to draw his gun and shoot the attacker in the chest. The bottom line is this: never underestimate a knife attack. They are every bit as deadly as a gun. Always create distance and put obstacles between you and the knife. To learn more about how to survive a knife attack, do a Google search on the Tueller drill, which shows that a person within 21 feet can attack successfully with a knife before you can draw your gun and shoot. Tueller is spelled Tueller. That's Tango Uniform Echo Lima Lima Echo Romeo.
So he shouldn't have tried to shoot the knife out of his hand?
Exactly right.
Good.
Okay, folks, welcome back to the Home Defense Show. This is your host, Skip Coryell. Jason Stanley, Marine Corps combat veteran, National Guard combat veteran. You don't get many of those now, do you? He had some great stories. Man, thank God for men like him who are willing to go into service and do the nasty stuff that has to be done to help our country. All right, well, I have a feeling we're going to be hearing from Jason Stanley again sometime soon, and we wish him the best on his bar exam and all that he does. Okay. Well, I was going to go ahead and I was going to read you a chapter or part of a chapter from Concealed Carry for Christians, but, the truth is, I'm just not in the mood, quite frankly. All I can think of is that Major Payne movie. When he tells that story, this was with that movie with Damon Wayans, right? If you haven't watched it, you've got to watch this show. Damon Wayans, he's Major Payne, a Marine Corps combat veteran, with an incredible case of PTSD. And he tells that tiny little boy, tender little boy, the story of the little engine that could. You've got to watch that movie. It's titled Major Payne, and it stars Damon Wayans. It's just an awesome movie. My wife hates it. She absolutely hates it, and I love it. I can't help myself. I just love that movie, and it causes a little bit of strife about 3 times a year at my house when I watch it, and even when I let my kids watch that movie, because Sarah does not like that at all, and I don't blame her. She's probably right, but I'm a sick man. I am just a sick man. I can't help it. I keep seeing that guy from the VA hospital driving his scooter down the hall. The little legless man on a scooter crying out for tobacco. Oh, I need help. I think I might flunk a psychiatric exam too. I should probably shut up before they pass one of those red flag laws and come to my house for my guns, just based on this one episode 122 of the Home Defense Show. It's coming to a close, folks. It's coming to a close. But before we close, we are going to go ahead and thank our sponsors, firearmslegal.com/Midwest Tactical. Check them out and find out how your family can be prepared legally for use of deadly force. And then also check out elitefirearms.us. See what Larry Jackson can do to help your family purchase the right firearm the first time. And then, of course, the best indoor gun range in Michigan, Center Shot in Door, Michigan. Go to centershotgunrange.com. Well, okay, folks, that about wraps it up for this week's episode of the Home Defense Show. Until next week, remember your purpose in life is to find something greater than yourself and serve it. Always remember, God, family, country, in that order. It's important how you live, but it's equally important how you die. Your family and the ones you love need your protection, so train, always train, stay alert, stay alive. Until next week on the Home Defense Show, this is your host, Skip Coryell. God bless you, God bless your family, and God bless America. Oh, what a day. Have a good week, folks.
It wasn't until Charlie rigged the bridge with plastic explosive, just as the little engine was making its way across the trestle. Boom! An explosion happened. Blood and guts and spitting ass was everywhere. And Bubba come crawling out the back door. Both legs missing. Lula made baby boy. He looked up at me. He said, "Hey, I can't feel my legs." I said, "Bubba, they ain't there." And I looked down, and them little bloody nubs was kicking real fast like this here. And I said, "Bubba, it's 30 miles to the nearest town. Unless you can flip upside down and walk on your hand, you ain't gonna make it." And all of a sudden, Charlie was all over the place. Just me and my sidearm. And I had no other alternative but to blast my way out. Die, pig, die! You'll never take Major Bitch and winner for pain alive! Bam! I know what you did to my friends! Bam! Major! 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 Bam!
Thank you for joining us this week on the Home Defense Show. Now, get out there and protect the ones you love. We'll see you next week with more of the best in home defense.
Bye-bye, boys! Have fun storming the castle!